On February 28, the Reliance Industries Limited and the Walt Disney Company signed definitive agreements for a joint venture and also decided to merge the businesses of Viacom18 and Star India. This new merger creates the largest media network in the country with over 750 million viewers and a combined revenue of 25,000 crore. Why did Disney choose to merge with its competitor? How will Reliance benefit from this alliance? How will the coming together of these two impact the Indian media and entertainment industry? Will the merger change the dynamics of cricket streaming market in the country? Stay tuned to find out more. But before that, please hit subscribe and don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated for more such interesting stories. The Mukesh Ambani-led Reliance Industries and the Walt Disney Company have agreed to merge their media streaming arms in India valued at $8.5 billion. Reliance will own 16.34% stake directly. In addition to 46.82% it will control through Viacom18, while the remaining 36.84% will be held by Disney. Disney's rationale behind choosing the merger path. Disney's TV and streaming business in India have encountered difficulties in the recent years. The company has struggled to maintain its business in India, losing 23 million members, with Jio Cinema acquiring IPL streaming rights. Why did Disney choose to merge with its competitor? How will Reliance benefit from this alliance? Let's hear more from Hari Vishwanath, Deputy Editor, BL Portfolio, who has a vast experience working with international equities and markets.
So why is Disney getting into this joint venture with Reliance? Personally, for someone like me who's followed the media industry, the global media industry for over a decade, I'm surprised by Disney actually stepping back in India. Yes, they're going to remain, but they're going to be a minority partner in Reliance's media empire. You're talking of a 100-year-old company that had doubts about whether it wanted to invest and grow its business in the country. And this is surprising actually. And the roots of this could be in issues that Disney is facing in the US. In 2020, Bob Iger, the long-standing CEO of Disney, stepped back and he was replaced by Bob Chapek. Bob Chapek was handpicked by Bob Iger, and this was a surprise to many insiders and outsiders because there were many other contenders for this post. But I guess Bob Iger picked him with an intention to somehow keep controlling the operations of Disney because he had been the CEO of Disney for 15 years. So a lot of transition that Disney had endured over the last 2 decades happened under the watch of Bob Iger. But then when Bob Chapek took over, he had his own strategy, and this created certain problems within the management. And by 2022, Bob Iger, with the support of Disney's board, ousted Bob Chapek and he became the CEO again. So I guess from the time he took over the reins again, he's been under pressure to create value. Disney's stock peaked at over $200 in 2021 and fell to below 100 after that during the market crash of 2022. It's seen some recovery, but not much. And then there have been activist investors, shareholders in Disney trying to pressurize the board to make some strategic decisions to create value. But in my opinion, this is short-sighted. You don't take a back step in a market like India, especially for a big company like Disney with 100 years of operations and so much of expertise in the media industry. In many angles, if you look at India is the market of the future. You have a huge opportunity, whichever sector you take, especially in the consumer area. And media is a consumer business. And yes, there are challenges. The revenue per streaming subscriber in India is much lower. Netflix learned it the hard way. They came in with the same pricing structure in the US. They didn't get subscribers and they changed it in India. Now you can subscribe to Netflix at much cheaper rates than rest of the world. So you have to invest through this phase, okay? If you go back to 2007, pre-streaming days, Netflix was a $2 billion company and Disney was a $60 billion company. Today, Disney is a $200 billion company, right? Okay, they have grown. But Netflix has grown all the way from $2 billion to $270 billion today. And they didn't grow by trying to save cash and reduce expenses. They grew through this phase by investing heavily in quality content and getting subscribers. Ideally, that is the strategy that anyone must take in India. If you want to tap the Indian consumer market in the media space, you should be willing to invest extensively in creating quality content. And you should, yes, the pricing is low, but you build your market and then you maybe increase pricing. You work around it, all right? But you have to invest in the media business. So maybe Disney didn't want to keep investing because of its issues in the US, including the shareholder pressure. But I think they will come to regret it. So who gains from all this? This whole thing is Reliance's gain, all right? Now see, if you actually see which are all the businesses folded into the Reliance Disney joint venture, the Disney business in India was a combination of erstwhile News Corp and Disney. All right. Now, and Viacom was also a JV partner in the Reliance media business. So the India business of Reliance comprises four media giants, four erstwhile media giants. One is Reliance on its own, had some media business. Now you have Disney, Viacom, and erstwhile News Corp all folded into this. So I guess Reliance can gain a lot from it. But again, for Reliance to gain from this, they too have to invest. You have to invest billions of dollars in quality content to become a multi-billion dollar company like what Netflix is today. So I think that's one lesson that Reliance can take away. And let's see what Disney feels about it a few years later.
Adding to these statements, Business Line's Ayushi said,
it has been a tough market from monetization from the get-go. So even when Disney likely entered India with its acquisition of Star as Disney Star, the promise that the India market held for Disney at that point was boosting of subscriber numbers. But that really comes at a cost of entering into a very price-sensitive market, which is really tough to sort of get revenues from. So early on with the acquisition of IPL rights, you will see that for quarter after quarter, Disney was really posting subscriber growth for the first time after a long while, especially because it had essentially saturated itself in all the Western markets like States and other places. But the issue is that something that's faced by most tech companies, even telecom firms in India, is that it's really hard to monetize the Indian audience and get that average revenue per user. And at this point, when the IPL rights came for renewal, and I think most of your cricketing rights came for renewal, Disney could not take the tough call of reacquiring those rights, something that it had built its vast audience on, which ultimately led it to become the biggest streaming company in India. And given that Reliance was quite keen to enter the streaming market, there is nothing that really could stop Reliance from acquiring those rights. They were going to price those rights up significantly, and Disney took the tough call of holding on to the linear rights, which also boosted up significantly in cost, and had to ultimately let go of their streaming rights. And now, as a result, they started to hemorrhage subscribers 2023 onwards, losing hundreds of thousands of subscribers every quarter. So clearly there is a direction that Disney is going, which is to deprioritize streaming, deprioritize content. And in that paradigm, if you look at India business, it becomes a very tough asset to hold on to.
How will the coming together of these two impact the Indian media and entertainment industry?
So it's pretty easy. Like, it's going to be like what it has been for the telecommunications business, for that matter. They are following the same playbook as they did when they entered telecom in 2016, and now you see that Reliance holds an undisputed majority. So there is clearly a monopoly that has emerged in media space, especially with streaming, which is a very tough market in India, as we have already spoken about in the previous answer. But it is the market that globally as well as in India holds the largest potential. Disney and JioCinema together is going to have more than 50% market share when it comes to streaming. For linear, things are a bit more well distributed. Have strong regional players like Sun TV. Even Zee and Sony are quite strong in the kind of content that they create that captures that kind of middle class mass audience that linear needs to have, the soap audience. Even Star, for that matter, does have a big play there, but things are a bit more well distributed in that sphere. And just generally, given how regionalized India's market is and how big our consumer base is, things do balance out in that way. Even for streaming, you do have regional players, you do have smaller that do cater to an audience that sort of Disney and Jio together also do not reach. But definitely there is a significant majority that has been created.
How will this affect other media streaming platforms? And how will it affect the advertisement rates? For the advertising and media sector, this presents a dual prospect of opportunities and challenges. On the positive side, it unlocks fresh possibilities for crafting and deploying innovative and compelling campaigns across an extensive and diverse portfolio of channels and platforms, providing us with extensive reach. However, it also heightens competition and enhances the negotiation power of the newly merged entity, enabling it to exert greater control over pricing and inventory. I hope that in the coming years, the merger achieves a balanced outcome. Harsha Razdan, CEO, South Asia, Dentsu, explained. Will the merger change the dynamics of cricket streaming in the country?
Cricket is the point of entry to become a streaming giant, and that's the first fatal blow that they that was the fatal blow that they did on Disney, where they took that kind of stronghold, that cricketing monopoly that ultimately gave them their strong subscriber base, and they captured it from the get-go. So if you look at it totally at this point, with IPL's linear rights also in the bag, ultimately there is a fundamental monopoly that they have for the next 4 to 5 years when it comes to cricketing streaming rights. Now the question is that whether they are able to justify this bet. They have inflated the price of cricketing rights significantly. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it has gone up quite disproportionately, and most of the analyst community is now worried that whether your AdSense are going to be able to really recoup the price. So ultimately, for the next 4 to 5 years, it is a clear monopoly when it comes to sports streaming. That's where Jio and Disney together are going to shine. What is interesting to now watch is what impact it has on where your niche sports go, because they also do have a significant viewership in India. Obviously, 93% of the market for sports is captured by cricket, but you do have things like football, tennis, etc. But what we're seeing from analysts now is that potentially, given that there is a sporting audience, a very fanatic, a very well-paying sporting audience that has been made cumulatively on Disney and Reliance together, where are these sport companies going to sport franchises going to want to, and whether Jio is going to have the appetite or Reliance is going to have the appetite to ultimately buy out all kind of paradigms of sports that we really have.
Will the competition watchdog approve this merger? After all, the size of this deal is huge, and the newly formed entity will almost have a monopolistic hold over the market. Has this situation arisen before, and how did CCI deal with it then?
It's definitely going to be interesting for CCI. Firstly, we don't necessarily have a 70 to 80% market share across verticals. Even for streaming, where they are the strongest, they have a 50% market share, which is especially big given the kind of synergies that are here. Those are kind of novel synergies technologically. We're looking at a completely different age, technology-wise. A company is sort of present across all of the verticals of TM, technology, media, and tech, right? So from that perspective, it is a very interesting one for CCI to regulate. It's not like the typical Zee-Sony merger. There is a lot more that CCI has to look at. It's a bigger media monopoly for sure, and there is a lot of other things in play as well. Looking at the analyst community, it does not seem like they're too worried about the fact that CCI is going to strike down the merger or potentially do something that might have a very significant impact on Reliance and Disney together. Typically, how CCI approaches these mergers, if you look at what has happened with Zee and Sony, when there was a certain regional monopoly they were seeing, they asked Zee to shut down certain channels. And that's something now that's being fought in court now that merger has fallen through. Zee is saying that that had a considerable impact on their profits, but that is also debatable. They really wanted this merger to go through, and they want Sony to have some punitive payback, which is why they are doing that. So it really did not have any particular effect on the workings of Zee and Sony then. So it's quite safe to say that it might not potentially have any kind of existential effect on how Reliance and Disney's sort of daily operate. Like, they might potentially ask them to shut down certain channels. I'm very interested to see how they will look at the sporting monopoly. But again, the sporting monopoly, when Disney Star had all cricketing rights in the past, although they built their user base on top of that, now there's already a very good audience for sports that they already have and the streaming rights. So that's something that's different for this year, for this time around. So those are things that CCI has to take into stock. But it will be very interesting to see. It is novel in many ways. I think the synergies is one place where it is quite novel. And you've had regulatorily, there are a lot of small parts of these kind of monopolies that TRAI as a regulator has also looked at, said that CCI should look at in past consultation processes. So those are things that will be interesting for the regulator to sort of take on. But ultimately, whether this merger does not go through, or whether what CCI asks Reliance and Disney to modify on to make this merger go through, will those be things of existential concern? Quite unlikely.
The merger between Disney and Reliance's media streaming arms in India will create a giant entity. It will be interesting to see how the media landscape changes when the behemoth gets into action. Thank you for watching.